All right, let's take some calls now. Remind everyone, 434-549-8548 is the number to call. Press 1 and you'll get right into the studio to talk with Jeff Evans. Go ahead, caller. You have questions?
Hello.
Hello. Do you have questions for Jeff Evans?
Yes. Jeff.
Yes.
Would you like to tell our listeners about when you were a state trooper putting guns in suspects' mouths and smacking them up beside the head with a gun?
Well, Alton, that may be. I'd say if we talk to enough state troopers or police officers anywhere, then them things may have happened. But that's in the past, whatever it is you're talking about.
So you're not calling me a liar?
No, I'm not calling you a liar. I don't know exactly what you're even talking about.
Yeah, I'd like to know. Let's be specific. Are you suggesting that Jeff Evans himself is someone who has been guilty of police brutality, or are you referring to state troopers in general?
Well, according to his stories to me, yes.
Yes, which?
Yes, he has. According to his stories to me, he has placed guns in suspects' mouths and smacked people upside the head with his gun.
What's your name, caller?
Why do you need to know my name? Jeff knows my name.
So do you know this caller?
Yeah, I know it.
Okay. I just was getting your first name. But tell me, what's this caller talking about, Jeff?
This gentleman here, he helped run my campaign in 2007.
So he was a supporter?
Yes, he was. But he's not now. And that's perfectly fine.
And that's, caller, any other questions? I mean, you were a supporter of his in 2007, and now you're making, certainly very derogatory remarks.
Does he deny any of my accusations?
Let me ask you this. Why would you change?
No. Answer.
I don't have to answer your question. Guess what? It's my show. I'm asking you, and then I'll answer, and then we'll get Jeff to answer. Why would you be a supporter in 2007 and now make these remarks in 2011? I've got to ask you that.
As you go through a campaign with a candidate,
okay,
you begin to learn that candidate.
Okay,
you begin to know that candidate.
Okay.
Before the campaign was over, I knew that this candidate was not senatorial material. That's
fair enough. Did you resign as his as a supporter?
No, I was too deep into it at that point. I couldn't realistically resign.
All right, let's stop right there. What are your responses to those?
I'll just be honest, I'm not going to respond.
Okay.
I'm not going to respond. If I had been such a bad candidate, Alton could have stepped out at any time. And believe me, at no more than I was able to pay him, it wouldn't have been no problem.
Did you know his feelings towards you had changed?
I didn't until this, just Facebook, things like that.
So this has been a recent issue.
Does he deny telling me these stories?
I'm not even going to answer you, Alton. I'm not even going to give you the decency of an answer, to be honest with you.
So you do not deny these stories?
I'm not denying or accepting. I am saying that I'm not answering you. If this was such a problem,
abused in prison.
No, you're not listening. If what I have ever said to you was such a problem then, and if you'd have had any character, you should have stepped out. You should have then stepped away. I would have, but I'm not, because now that you're disgruntled with me, I'm not going to answer it. Don't have to answer it. What I did as a Virginia State Trooper, and things that were done that maybe weren't along with whatever. Then I was,
Are you proud of your service as a trooper?
Absolutely.
Are you acknowledging that perhaps there were times when you can wait just a second, caller? Are you acknowledging, because I hear you saying there were things that were done? Are you acknowledging that in your hindsight, you may have made mistakes as a trooper, or you may have done things differently?
Nobody ever wears a badge that operates in a split second making decisions that don't regret some things they do. It's not an easy job, But as far as looking back at my career, I gave my whole heart to it. I'm proud of my service.
All right. Is that fair enough, caller?
So he will release his entire state police personnel records.
Would you feel so inclined to do so?
I have no reason to, but if he wants to go get them, that's fine. That's fine. It's amazing to me that since 2007, that it's all of a sudden now. And this gentleman noted that I was going to run again. Why didn't he bring this issue up before?
I have to ask this caller, are you a supporter of either candidate, Roscoe Reynolds or Bill Stanley, at this point?
I'm no more of a supporter of either candidate than he is of Roscoe Reynolds.
Are you working for either candidate?
Am I working for either candidate?
Are you?
No.
Are you? I think that's a fair question when you have this type of comment, and you obviously have a real disagreement here. I think it's a fair question.
I think the people of the 20th district needs to know the type of candidate we've got here. This man has told me on numerous occasions of abusing prisoners.
No, I will say that's not true. That is not.
Then you're calling me a liar, Jeff.
I just said that was not true.
Then you're calling me a liar.
However you want to take that. That's up to you.
No, that's what the way you said it. You're calling me a liar.
And yet, he was a supporter of yours through an entire campaign in 2007.
He was a supporter, also
So I do have to ask you, caller.
supposedly a friend for several years after the election.
And it's your call, and I'll let you. You know, I certainly don't mean to defend you, but I've got to ask, caller, if you felt this strongly about statements that Jeff Evans had made to you in that campaign, surely your own integrity would have forced you to resign, or your own self of
you fail to understand the realities of a campaign.
Okay, please share it with me.
I could not, with any kind of legitimacy, back out of the campaign at that time.
I have to ask you why you thought that, because I am fairly familiar after 10 years of working with the station and working with campaign managers in numerous elections and really getting to find out about and I'm very interested in the political process. Why you simply would not have said at that point, this is a candidate that I have to disassociate myself with. If he would have won, would you have still been a supporter?
No, I would not have been.
Okay, that's fair.
As a matter of fact, I told this man that he needed to, if he wanted to run again, I told him that he needed to hire a professional campaign manager and follow his advice.
That sounds reasonable. That sounds very reasonable. It doesn't sound...
But I'm not tell you that, Jeff.
Oh, I'm not denying you said that, because it was the first time. You're the one that contacted me in 2007, and this gentleman, just like myself, he had never run for this. He had never handled any kind of a campaign. So I appreciated what he'd done for me.
Sure.
You know, it was all this.
So this is something that's been happening?
All this is new to me now since this election started. And
We
won't even get into the racial stuff.
These are strong comments. I'll tell you what, caller. What I'd like to do is I'd like to see the two of you sit down and have this conversation. I think that there's some things that definitely need to be discussed. If this is comments that he's making on Facebook and other things.
I have no reason to sit down with this man.
Well, you know, in all honesty, you're calling up. Viewers don't know who you are. Viewers do know who Jeff is, and you know, and you're making these comments, and quite frankly, with no proof of them having been said, they are very inflammatory.
Jeff won't deny them.
I thought you did deny them.
I did deny it. I denied the abuse. I denied the abuse.
Do you deny any racial comments?
So he's
Is that a fair question?
You know, when you're a police officer, well, it is a fair question. And when you're a police officer,
you are aware of libel laws, Jeff, correct?
I hope you are, Alton. I hope you are also. But you know, the thing of it is, Jessica, not one police officer could ever say they've not used racial slurs. I can't say that. We've all done it.
Really?
Yes. You know, as far as a person now that's a prejudiced person, a racial person, you can't find it in me. And he knows this.
Okay.
He knows this. He came to church for a while with where I was going to church.
Right.
I helped this man to find a place to live because he was my friend. You know, and so because that I felt good about what he had done for me in my campaign, I paid for his cell phone for at least 2 years after the race.
So you two were friends, and now this is his reaction
and
to you.
this is the first time this has come up. So
do you know why?
Since I came
do you know why, Jeff?
I really don't. I really don't know why.
Why are you now publicly coming forward with these statements?
Because I think the people of the 20th district needs to know that this man wants the Senate seat for himself and not for the people in 20th district.
All right, listen, I want to thank you for your call. I think we've given you enough time. I do want to accept other phone calls as well. 434-549-8548. Very inflammatory comments.
Yeah.
Do you have to take a deep breath after that? Name, caller.
Why do you need accusations?
Let me ask you this. Why would you change?
No,
No,
answer.
I don't have to answer your question. Guess what? It's my show.
Begin to know that candidate.
Okay.
Before the campaign was over, I knew that this candidate was not senatorial material.
That's fair enough. Did you resign as his?
Realistically, resign.
All right. Let's stop right there.
A bad candidate. He could have stepped out at any time. And believe me, at no more than I was able to pay him. I didn't until this.
Does he deny telling me these stories?
I'm not even going to answer you, Alton. I'm not even going to give you the decency of an answer, to be honest with you.
So you do not.
And thanks for joining me today. I'm Johnny Robertson, and we are here live on What Does the Bible Say? We're doing a school broadcast, and we have a very, what I'm going to say, exciting lineup yet to deal with today. And the lineup has to do, really, with kings and authority. We are dealing with kings, and there are oftentimes, and people do not realize that there are all kinds of things that you can learn that you don't really realize you can learn in a study of kings. And when I say kings and authority, you might say, well, Johnny, I thought you were about to move in to the taking over of the kingdom from Jeroboam to his son, and then a conspiracy. And we were ready for that. We studied for that. Well, that's fine. But here's the thing. You may not realize that embedded in this information is all kinds of tools. It's life tools that you just, if you don't get this, you're going to be a messed up individual. You're going to be acting in such a way that you probably would end up quitting being a Christian, or you'll level out, plateau, you'll be unsatisfied with yourself because of the difficulty that you have connecting different scriptures together, and there will be a disconnect, and when you have a disconnect, it ends up causing cognitive dissonance. And what that means is your brain is hearing two messages at the same time, and that's clutter. That creates clutter, maybe even three messages at the same time. And so when you start having your brain do that to you, you start having a conscience problem. And so here's a passage we're going to look at. Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but God. The powers that be are ordained of God. Now I'm going to be questioning the powers in our area today, and you might actually feel offended, or you might you may have that moment where you're saying, this just doesn't sound right. There's something up. And so this is a very important point. Notice Acts chapter 25, verse 10. Then said Paul, I stand at Caesar's judgment seat, where I ought to be judged. To the Jews have I done no wrong, as thou knowest very well. Now, Paul is going to appeal to Caesar. He is in front of a governor that belongs to Caesar. He is in front of Jewish authorities who are accusing him. And he basically does not bow. He's already been in two other courts. He has been questioned by a captain, centurion, and Paul's not budging. He's not giving in, and he ends up appealing to Caesar and taking himself completely outside of the Judaism realm. And so, how does he do that? And did you ever stop to think about kings and authority? So that's why we're doing what we're doing today. Now, yesterday, we actually had a very tragic event take place. And I want to cue that up for you so that you can realize it. Now, I don't know exactly how, we're on Star News now. We're in Reidsville, North Carolina. Our phone lines, I don't know, my producer needs to check on my phone lines because we are going to be taking calls. And so our phone lines are North Carolina phone calls. I mean, it's going to be a North Carolina number. And so I don't know if Charles did any advertising for our broadcast today. It doesn't really matter. I hope that you're watching if you're local. And I'm fairly certain that this will play again because it is local events that play into kings and authority. And this is why you have kings in your Bible in the first place, is because of the fact that it enables you to be a player on a real stage. You're reading about real people and they're on a real stage. If you do not enter the picture, if you don't surround yourself with the real life events that are taking place and make them real in your life, learn from them, watch these individuals, what they do, how they go wrong, how they fix themselves, individuals that are over here creating problems for the righteous people, individuals that you might see them pulling away from, family members that they may decide that they're not even going to fool with. And so those are real life things. And here you see Paul, he is actually appealing to Caesar. And you might say at some point in your life, even in the church, I don't want to listen to these guys who claim to be elders. It could be that you begin to realize that they don't know what they're doing. And so this is by design today to help you start thinking. Now, I'm going to cue it up and we're going to go at 1. I'm talking to myself, so just be patient with me.
The fire and brimstone that was
The woman.
When you're raised the way that we are, it becomes a second nature that the man is the boss.
He's just the boss.
They believe this rule especially applies in the house of God.
Let your women keep silent in the churches.
Of course, we can sing. We have a lot of female singers, and that's about it.
For 50 years, polygamy has been defended as a normal way of life in this country church, first by his father and then by preacher Elwood.
If she passed the flower of her age, and we all know what he's talking about, then if not, let them marry.
That's their justification for polygamous marriages to girls barely past puberty, a way of life passed from generation to generation.
Mom and Dad teaching you right from wrong, and I've just always knew it was the truth.
I have my house, and she has hers. Yes.
The next generation also embraces...
Now, what you're hearing here should shock you.
We have a lot of female singers, and that's about it.
For 50 years, polygamy has been defended as a normal way of life in this country church, first by his father and then by preacher Elwood.
If she passed the flower of her age, and we all know what he's talking about, then if not, let them marry.
That's their justification for polygamous marriages to girls barely
Polygamous
past puberty.
marriage barely past puberty. Yesterday, preacher Elwood Gallimore was buried, and the thing that I'm calling a tragedy is the fact that you don't have any information any more than you had. And so we have to ask ourselves the question, why is that? This is Sabrina, the second wife that Gallimore took several years ago. This all took place, as far as court is concerned, 1993, 1994 time frame. Things that were going on in his church were going on prior to that. And he ended up running afoul of the law as it was, and he was involved with a girl, as the news reporter just said, barely past puberty, and he already had one wife. And so I didn't learn until I listened closely to this particular footage, which I've listened to many times. It just didn't dawn on me that that the reporting that was done, actually I'm learning. And you could be learning too, but that tragic event is what we're talking about. I just learned that Gallimore's father was teaching this before Gallimore, and so it had been going on for 50 years when this particular ABC item was packaged and put out. And so I don't know if this was a follow-up. I don't think this is around the court time frame because she was a very, very young girl. It's lead stories in Martinsville Bulletin this week, lead story in Roanoke Times, which is, another county, 2 counties over. And, they're basically a whole nother world away. And so Caleb has an article that came out, I believe, yesterday in the Martinsville Bulletin, as well as another article that was in the Martinsville Bulletin. It was on the front page of the Martinsville Bulletin sometime last week. And so this is an event that is running in Martinsville, Henry County. Local individuals, you're going to learn some things today. I promise you that. And it's going to be my goal to help you to realize the disconnect that's taking place in your life. And one of the things that we're going to do is, we do have to realize that she is basically telling you how things work and why they are the way they are. And let's go back just a minute and get a little bit of footage here.
Is clear about the relationship between the sexes.
The man is the head of the woman.
When you're raised the way that we are, it becomes
when you're
second
raised
nature.
a certain way, it becomes a second nature. Now, y'all, this is extremely important. When you're raised the way you are, in religion in particular, now this happens in other areas too, but in religion, what actually starts happening is as the pastor starts talking, your brain disengages as far as looking for error or saying to yourself, okay, pastor is teaching and talking, and I need to be paying attention because there is the possibility that he's going to say something that could actually create doubt in my mind or make me think that I might need to be careful here. And one of the things starts happening to young people is young people start seeing their parents doing things different than the pastor is saying. And so that's a good thing for young people. It's a good process that takes place. God blessed us with that. We actually have a mind of our own, a conscience of our own, and we have a thinking mechanism that is allowed to start creating, our own conscience. And if you say, the pastor saying one thing, the preacher saying one thing, mom and dad are doing another thing, that immediately should set alarms off, but often it doesn't. As she just said, it becomes second nature not to doubt. But here's the thing. In a religious discussion, this is that place where you really are not thinking, and the reason is authorities in religion, they condition the congregants just not to think critically. Now that's very important. And you think about it. Why would I have to think critically? This is one of the reasons that you look out over the congregation if you happen to be a teacher and you see people zoned out. People don't think that they need to listen. They don't really think that this is something that's going to change anything because you know what? It's already set. Just like she said, we're going to do what our parents did. It's in our nature. If we don't do it now, we're going to do it down the road. You got a lot of people that sat through church services. We had a young guy that sat for years and years and years. And then he got a girlfriend when he was maybe 28. He could have been even older than that. I don't know. And then just boom, he's gone. Well, in his mind, he may have been planning at some point to engage. And then a girl comes along and he didn't. He disappeared. And so you could be in that same vein. You're doing what your parents did and you intend to engage at some point. And so you just sit through and, here at Martinsville, we have a 3-hour service. I don't know if you realize that, but we start at 9 a.m. in the morning. We have preaching at 9 a.m. We have Bible class at 10 a.m. and we have regular worship at 11. And so there are people that come at 9 a.m. and we don't often leave until 12:15. Leave is, I don't even know when people leave, but 12:30. And then people go out door knocking and then they come back and there's still people here. And so it's a lengthy, there are people that are very engaged. And so, if you were going through the tradition of that, man, but people do it. And it's because, as the woman said. Now, here's the thing. You may not realize this, but this also happens in another arena besides religion. And that's why we're talking about this today, is because it's kings and power. This also happens in our minds when it comes to the powers that be. We're raised up as I'm not saying everybody's this way, but as a general rule, it used to be the case. Now, I'm old. I'm 62 this year, gonna be. And so we were raised up thinking, of actually being told in the school, we were shown pictures of the police, we were shown pictures of the firemen, Everybody wanted to get on a school bus. That your older brothers and sisters went to school, and you want to get on the bus, and the bus driver's a friend, and these authority figures, and you respect them, and basically you disengage, and you don't really necessarily pay attention to what's going on around you. And so, again, that is a disconnect. And it's because you don't think you need to be careful, because it is your second nature built into you by your parents. This country is great. The authorities are to be respected and looked up to, and there's nothing to worry about. That is a very, very dangerous mindset. And so I have a very long clip that I was playing for the television stations to all line up. We have to play a bumper so that the television stations that are actually going to be lining up to take our broadcast into their markets. And we were playing a state trooper who was caught on the carpet as he was running for a representative of this particular district. He was called on the carpet by one of his former managers of his campaign. I think it was the time before. He didn't get it, and then he was running again. And this particular fellow ended up telling the story about Jeff Evans and former state trooper and pastor, that he had actually stuck his revolver in a person's mouth that he was interrogating, and used all kinds of racial slurs and things of that nature. And Mr. Evans did not admit, deny. He just said, I'm not going to comment on that. Now, he did talk about the racial slurs, and he said there are no policemen that can honestly say that they do not use racial slurs. Now, I don't know why that is such a big announcement. Listen, people talk the way they talk in and amongst themselves. And if you don't think that people basically become unhinged from their mind and their conscience when they're around people that they basically say, these are people that know everything about me, and things come out and you talk about different things. Sometimes when my daughter is, I don't even know how old she is. She's fixing to have a birthday. I think she's probably, I don't want to offend her, but I would say for sure she's 40, and she may not be. But still, in my mind, once you get past 25, you're really starting to get in our zone. And when you get to be 35, you're definitely in our zone, and really pretty much what we know. You've raised your children, and if I say something to her about myself and her mom, she just flips out. It's like, what? And it's, but I'm just saying, once we're with our family, we're with our close friends, in this congregation, we talk about everything. We are very diverse in our ethnic makeup here. I mean, you would not even literally, I don't want to take the time to tell you all the nationalities that are here and the things that we are working with just in a fluid way, constantly. And so, what were we talking about? We were talking about the fact that the authority, that particular individual, Pastor Evans, still around, he didn't get to be representative. He represents our authority, and you cannot allow yourself to be disconnected from the process. You have to pay attention. Now, it becomes very difficult when you start to engage. That's what you're learning in Kings. You will end up seeing things like a righteous king of Judah who needs to be very careful because Jesus is coming through the line of Judah. And he ends up allowing his son to marry into the line of basically, if for the life of me, I don't really think that I could actually answer what line Ahab comes from. It's just, I'm not up to Ahab's time frame right now. And so I'm so immersed in where I am, that it just doesn't ring a bell. I mean, I know who the conspirator is that's going to take the kingdom away from Jeroboam's line. He is actually from the tribe of Issachar. But when Omri gets in, I actually will just have to beg that, I don't know everything at all times. And so I know where to find it, so that, we have that tool. And if you were dying to know, I could look it up on our computer, on our Bible program, but I'm not going to do it. But you see what I'm saying? He should have known better. Jehoshaphat should have known better than to allow himself to move in close to Ahab's line. And so why did he not? The same thing we're talking about. He wasn't paying attention to his confederates. He wasn't paying attention to his alignment, his political alignments. And you say, well, I'm not even in politics. You're in politics. Politics are all around you. If your kid's in the school system, you're in politics. What does that mean? Somebody's running for the school board, and the people that are on the school board can either be idiots, unlearned, they can just be any just unbelievable people, and they're making rules for your kids. We played last week that Disney is, the leaked video of the CEO of Disney called her kids queers and said one is a pansexual and the other is a transgender. Your kid's going to school with pansexual? You don't even know what a pansexual is? Are you in New York? You got 52 different genders that you actually have to recognize. See, this is a crazy world, and if you disengage yourself from it, guess what? The same thing that happens in church. You'll end up being in a church that is doing some crazy stuff, and you will not realize that you're promoting it. And so, the tragedy is that you don't know anything about Sabrina Gallimore. Well, you might say, Johnny, all y'all like to do over there is gossip. Listen, I've been involved with Gallimore for at least 12 years at this point. I can say that definitively, maybe even more. And on more than one occasion, he threatened to come in on my broadcast. I was one of the only individuals that absolutely would take him on. I never let him on my broadcast because I said he's a polygamist. I'm not even taking this dude serious, You just heard the ABC News, Channel 9, running that. It was all over the place here at different times. It's been in the Washington Post. He was on hard copy. I can't remember the national networks, media outlets that took this on. Sleepy little Martinsville, 50 years this has been going on, and the other stuff is going on. And so what actually happened yesterday is something, that you should ask in your mind, well, what happened? And is it something that Johnny needed to do something about? Well, let me tell you this. I know Romans 13 very well. And I also know Paul's life very well. And I'm immersed in it. I actually am living it. Oh, you think you're the Apostle Paul? Listen, I have zero friends when it comes to the truth. You never know. I'm saying no one knows what anybody is going to do when it comes to the truth. You do not know what your wife's going to do. She doesn't know what you're going to do. When it comes to the truth, whether or not the next event that you face is going to be the event that breaks your resolve for a bit or for the long haul, no one actually knows. That's why Jeremiah 17 actually says what it says, that the heart is desperately wicked. Who can know it? God tries the reins. What are we talking about? Your reins, the things that go on in your life are trying you so that you can know yourself, God can know you, and He can give you the fruit that goes along with you being the kind of person who is holding the reins no matter what. Now, listen, the reason why it's that way is because God needs individuals that He can use and that He can depend on. And so you go through these processes, and as you go through them, you end up finding out who you are and what you can deal with. Some people have such a low ceiling when it comes to having their reins tried. I mean, they just blow up, immediately. Something happens and they just fall apart. And then there are other individuals that have gone through life events and they've gone through trials and tribulations, and what did they get? Romans chapter 5 tells you, 1 through 4 tells you get experience. And once you experience how God is bringing you through and the things you learn, then you're ready for God's next very exciting tour of duty. And so we're looking at Paul getting to the point where he actually has to appeal to Caesar. Now, when you go to Caesar, Caesar has the death sentence in his pocket. These other guys, they can kill too, but they have to be careful about what they're doing. The Roman governor, he has to be careful about the Jews when he kills somebody. He has to make sure he's killing the right person. You kill the wrong person, and all of a sudden you have just created a civil war. And that's what ends up happening in and around the time frame of the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70. Civil war breaks out, and it ends up being the Romans come in and they wipe the whole thing out. God was in this. He planned it. He had his son prophesy. He had Paul talk about it. He had Peter talk about it. These individuals were living in the shadow of that, and they very much, if they didn't know who's an authority and which authority to listen to and how to manage that, guess what? Toast. You just wouldn't be ready. Now, here's the thing. You could actually be setting the stage for your children just to be in a train wreck, really. If you're teaching them that everything the authorities say, that you have to run away and hide and do it. That's why we did not shut down our assembly, is because we know the law when it comes to what we can and cannot do. And if the law starts saying things that we cannot do that we know we can do, we also know the price we're going to pay. Now, I happen to know what it is like to be in prison. And that is a fortunate thing for me because I know what's going to happen next. Other individuals, when they start thinking about jail, they think about being in the backseat of a police car. It is that trial. It is where the reins, you just basically let loose and say, you know what, we've reached my limit. Just can't go there. Now, I'm going to tell you yesterday I made friends with a new bail bondsman. And he basically knows who I am already. He just never had talked to me. We had never talked about me using him as a bail bondsman for some of my loved ones, some of my most dear loved ones, as a matter of fact. Why? Because of the tragedy associated with the powers that be and the fact that we had a major event in our area which you did not get to know anything about, and that is Elwood Gallimore's funeral and Elwood Gallimore family going forward. Now, I stopped the video that I was playing of ABC News. I stopped it while they were basically dealing with the facts associated with Gallimore's father, himself having multiple wives, and his second wife, Sabrina, who was around 16 years old when they were having the dating procession associated with her. And her parents were members of Gallimore's church, and they were actually charged along with Gallimore when he went to court, and they were charged with contributing to the delinquency of a minor, and they all got out of it. And Gallimore remained married to Sabrina till he was 73 years old this past week, and he died. I don't know how old she is. One of the reasons I don't have more information to tell you what is going on is because of the powers that be. Now, here's the thing. If you're watching this and you watch Star News already, you already know locally, you know that we were told that we as citizens of this county did not have the right to be involved in any kind of behavior that would in any way be interpreted as causing a disturbance or a mockery, which ended up being defined by the sheriff. Now, mockery is a very, I would say, can I say ambiguous? It's a relative or ambiguous term. Your mockery and Sheriff Perry's mockery could be worlds apart. And the idea that mockery is not allowed could actually be defined in a court rather than basically being stated by the individuals who think they're enforcing laws that, in fact, when you get in front of a judge, it's not even there. Let me tell you, I've been there. And I'm saying as a Christian, I've been there. I have been in front of chiefs of police, captains, sergeants, police officers, and watched them, the officers, be told, no, you didn't have a right to do that. And oftentimes we knew beforehand that they did not have a right to do it. Why? Because we have a lawyer and he doesn't live here because of a thing called conflict of interest. Now, I can hear some of you saying, you know, this is way beyond my thinking process. I mean, who in the world is going to be involved in such a thing? Which world are you talking about? The materialistic world that you might be living in because there's a disconnect? And right now you're having what is called cognitive dissonance. You're having noise coming in from what does the Bible say, and you've got noise on the other side coming from your natural behavior that you learned from your parents, as Sabrina said. Second nature to do these things, the husband is the boss. Oh, when did that actually become a biblical precedent? It's not in the Bible, just blanket. The husband is the head of the wife. The husband has a head too. I mean, if you were reading 1 Corinthians 11, you would know that if he doesn't listen to his head, then he's out of line with authority and has no authority. I mean, who is he using as an authority? Well, he's saying Jesus says that I'm the head. And so you have to do what I say. Well, number one, you're not doing what Jesus says. So excuse me if I line up with Jesus and you actually happen to be noise over here. That's a very difficult relationship. Many people in this congregation actually live in that relationship. It is difficult. One of the problems, one of the things that I would warn you, don't marry a non-Christian. Well, Christians go bad. I know they go bad. We just got through talking about Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 9. We know that Christians' hearts are being tried, and they're very deceitful. Who can know them? You never know what your Christian husband's going to do or your Christian wife's going to do. So, but the best chance is to marry a Christian who actually is willing to look at things. And if you're supposedly a member of the Church of Christ, you're supposed to be looking for a thus saith the Lord on all this. And wives can question their husband. You know, where's the scripture for that? Vice versa. So let's go back to our video and let's basically let you be aware of why I'm calling this a tragedy. Now, let me move. I'm talking to myself again. To 1 minute and 38 seconds.
Church, first by his father, and
Don't know what he's talking about.
puberty, a way of life passed from generation to generation.
Mom and Dad teaching you right from wrong. And, you know, I've just always knew it was the truth.
I have my house and she has hers. Yes.
The next
The
generation
next
also embraces
generation. Let's go back. Let's go back.
I have my house and she has hers. Yes.
The next generation also embraces the tradition of multiple wives.
Would you marry more than one woman?
If I could afford it, I would. Because I was brought up.
Now here's a tragic question, or tragic event. Here's a sad question. How come it is that you don't have any fresh information about this young fella as to whether or not he's gotten to the point where he can afford to have that second wife and he's now living with her, with both of them? See what I'm saying? You're in Martinsville in Henry County, and basically the sheriff put into place a situation which chilled me. I'm saying it chilled my, let's just say, for instance, let's say while we're asking this question, who stopped you from seeing the next generation of polygamists? Well, you didn't even know there was polygamists in this area, you might say. You moved here from New York lately or Pennsylvania, somewhere up north where they're just flooding out of that area because of how bad it has gotten because of the authorities who are up there. And now you're down here and you thought, boy, this sleepy little town. Oh, yeah. This town's got it going on. I am telling you, there's some crazy stuff. School board members dressing in such a way that people are on television calling it a stripper. It basically looked like a stripper is what one guy said on The Buzz the other day. He was being sarcastic, but he actually said he would pay to see a stripper. And he was probably being sarcastic about that. Who knows? We had an atheist guy that I debated. He actually said he would love to see 2 lesbians in his own house. He was a physics teacher also in Eden. How about that? See what I mean? If you don't know what's going on, you don't know what you don't know. And we're basically saying, who stopped us from actually getting to see or to talk to the individuals that are making up our next generation? Are there some little Gallimores running around? Where are Sabrina's children? And he had another wife. Janice, the first wife, died. She divorced him eventually, and then Sabrina came along. He's got another wife, had another wife, 2 widows. And I'm basically, I'm saying, when the talking points came into my arena, I talked to Chef Perry myself because I knew I was going to be doing this show, and Gallimore had threatened me himself that he would come in and have a discussion with me one way or another. And why he was saying that is I would not let him on my broadcast because I said, you're not a legitimate preacher. And that just enraged him. And so we had back and forth in the newspaper for months on end, and we had back and forth on television. They would actually invite him on television. He would talk about me, and I would just basically answer him, and he just made a fool out of himself on a regular basis. Cannot demonstrate what he's talking about. But does he need to demonstrate it to this generation? They're already, by second nature at this point, they're already ready to be polygamists. Now, I said, the information that I got and the behavior that I saw take place chilled my determination to get off into the fact finding. I'm not done. For sure, I'm not done. I am not going to let at a religious event, a religious group that is as dangerous as this, just go unnoticed. Now, some individuals think that they demand respect. You can think that if you want to. I do not respect them. and I don't respect law enforcement that says that they ought to get a free ride just because it's a funeral. Y'all, I cannot tell you how many funerals I have been in where the entire funeral was turned over to somebody else. I'm saying we had in writing documentation given to the funeral home that we were to be in charge of the person's funeral. The person was a Christian, a member of the body of Christ, and we were to be in charge of the funeral. And we get there, and a woman preacher takes the pulpit. Now, what you going to do? You might say, well, that don't ever happen to us. Well, you know what? Maybe you're not in this like we are. When someone is at a funeral, if you're going to follow the Bible, we're not going to do the program on funerals necessarily, but I have one lined up. We had a brother who burned to death in a big rig in Monroe, Louisiana, West Monroe, Louisiana. They brought his body back here, and his wife was not a Christian, but she respected us. 3 children, they came, the 2 children came, and then she had a son that was born different from, I don't know the details, but just say that I know he was not Rodney's son. And so he was of age. And so, basically we were put in charge. The woman gets in the pulpit. One of our brethren was reading the scriptures and saying a prayer, and he said something about the woman preacher having no authority. When it was my turn to actually have my say, I stepped down out of the pulpit and talked to the young man who was of age. And I asked him, I said, would Rodney be going along with this if he were here? And he said, absolutely not. I didn't need his permission, but I surely wanted everybody to see what was going on. And so basically we lit in to these denominational people who will take over a funeral. They don't have any regard for stuff in a funeral. We had another gentleman, Henry Carter, that died just this past year. Same thing, paperwork. Funeral home had the paperwork. The Church of Christ is in charge of this funeral. This man was a Christian and he doesn't trust his wife. What does that mean? He doesn't trust her to do what he said to do at his funeral. Guess what? He was right. She's apostolic, took over. Funeral home went right along with it. The sheriff said he's never seen blah, blah, blah. The stuff the sheriff's never seen, you could feel what he and I probably went to school somewhere around the same time. When we were little kids, they had a big chief tablet. The reason it was big chief is because it had the big old lines. We didn't write on paper that had this little skinny line. Our little hands needed to make big letters. You could fill a big chief tablet with the stuff that he don't know about funerals. You can fill a big chief tablet about what I don't know about the law, but I can tell you this. I know somebody who can help me with the law, and I guarantee you he knows more about the law than Chief Perry. That's why we have lawyers. They basically make their calls, the police, they make their calls, and then you move it up the line. You move it up the line, and you end up in court, and the judge becomes the person who knows the ins and outs, and you get to hear it argued out, just like in Paul's life. And guess what? If you don't like the ruling, you can move out of the area and go to another court. That's exactly how it works. Well, you can say, if you want to, I'll never be involved in that. And I can probably say you won't. But the fact is, somebody's got to be involved in it, or our liberties will be taken away. And you're sitting here today, or tonight, whenever you view this, whenever Charles replays it, you will be saying, you know what? That's a tragedy. Well, you might say, well, whose fault is it? Well, you can ask the question, what does the Bible say? Is it Johnny Robertson and Caleb Robertson, the Church of Christ? Did they fail us? They usually don't fail us. They keep us up to date. Or you can ask the question, is it Star News? Well, I know basically from talking with Star News that the effects of the pass that was given to the Polygamist and the utterances that came from the, quote, authority, it chilled the reactions that usually come from Star News. You don't have any footage from Star News. I actually have more footage than Charles does. He doesn't know what I have. I don't know all what he has, but I'm fairly certain. I heard him say yesterday that we had things that he doesn't have, which means we have things that we're going to be showing. And how does this all play out in front of you? Kings and Chronicles. It is the chronicling of these kings. Kings is the life of these kings. Chronicles is the life of these kings and their subjects. There were subjects that had to actually kill kings. Whoa, what did you say? You ever read the Declaration of Independence? It basically starts with the idea, the line that says when two individuals can't get along and you realize you're not being, I'm paraphrasing, you're not being respected, your rights are actually being denied you, your inalienable rights that are given to you by God are not actually being respected, and the powers that be are actually breaking their own laws as they go. That's how you have a polygamist in this area. Somebody did away with some of the rules. What does that mean? That means they're making rules as they go. And you know what? I'm not going to live in a society where that takes place and I just lay down and take it. Now, you might say, well, what's that like, Johnny? It is very difficult, extremely difficult. I have that business about cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance, it's two different voices, and maybe even three. You never know how many people are talking to you at the same time while you're talking to yourself, and God is talking to you through His Word. You have all of this noise going on, and you just basically want to go out in the woods and scream, "Give me a break!" Ah, Jesus cried, is what He did. And He prayed. Take this cup from me. But at the end of the day, He said, "Thy will be done, if it be your will." And He knew it was His will. It was just difficult going in and doing what needs to be done. It's difficult. You know what? I really do not dislike Sheriff Perry. I mean, there are plenty of individuals that could be in play. Like, for instance, in Danville, let me tell you, I'll take Sheriff Perry 100 times over Danville, the powers that be. Now, I don't know the powers that be right now over there. They're less inclined to try to do anything to us since our lawyer actually beat them in court at the city level, took the city. You don't beat City Hall. He beat City Hall. And so they all know that. Matter of fact, everybody in the two states area knows that. And that's not us. Johnny Robertson did not beat City Hall. Our lawyer, our prayers, our faithful brethren who shored us up, and the people who paid the debt, they, with our God, helped us overcome the powers that be. And I think the powers that be are actually happy that we did, because you know what? We demonstrated that this could happen to you if you don't happen to be in a sitting position of being pleasing to the powers that be. Because listen, if the powers that be will run over me if they can, they'll run over you if they can, if they need to. And it's always a good checks and balance for them to realize. We have people that will stand up for themselves. Freedom is not free. Now, you have fanatics and nuts and all kinds of other individuals who aren't transparent. I'm doing this on television. And if I'm doing this on television, on antenna television, you can bet there's a possibility for being liable. We're not on YouTube, just YouTube. We're actually on an FCC broadcast station, more than one. When you're on the FCC rules, you go by the FCC rules. I could go to jail just for simply something that ends up being said, and someone gets a lawyer and they try. Brian Edwards got a lawyer, and he didn't go after me. He went after the conduit. He sued Charles, and that was hurtful, and he did it on purpose. He basically knew that Charles is actually the conduit by which we actually get into your house. So you ought to pray for Charles. Everywhere you are, you ought to pray for Charles Rourke in Star News. He has a difficult job, very difficult. He's actually riding the same out-of-control train that I'm on at times. And so he's doing it for a different reason, but as years have gone on, we've been together, I think, 22 years. We were with another broadcast station before we got with Charles, and he knows us very well, and he knows that we are not about anything but what you're seeing right now, and that is the truth. The garments we wear are secondhand. The cars we drive direct and secondhand. The things, I live in a mobile home. You know, Caleb lives in a 2-bedroom apartment in a very, as he described the other day, pitch black area if you get outside of his apartment area. And so he knows that. Charles knows that. He knows the kind of people that we are. But he also knows that we could give in. We know about him. He could give in. I don't know anybody that I've ever met that actually believes in free speech. And when I say believe, I am not talking about lip service. I'm talking about Bible belief, that kind of belief, where you believe something and you act a certain way. I've never met anybody that believes in freedom of speech more than Charles Rourke. And so he has put himself on the line. We've put him on the line many, many, many times, and he has never let us put us out to dry. So you can lay the blame wherever you want. Why do you not know? If you're in the community and you're wondering why you don't know, if you're on YouTube or Facebook and you don't know what is going on with the next generation of polygamists in Martinsville and Henry County, well, let me tell you what, if you're in Elizabethton, Tennessee, you have the same bunch over there. William Branham is the founder of this group, and they believe this wherever they are. And you have other individuals. You have a guy named Locke. I don't know where Locke is these days, but I know some of his followers in Knoxville, Tennessee, just nutty as fruitcakes. I'm saying, and you know why? It's because it's in their family nature. What does that mean? They mix and mingle with their family and the pastors, and they are disengaged, and they just do what they do, and they do it mindlessly. And when you try to stop them or tell them it's wrong, it is a huge insult to them. And so I don't know why Sheriff Perry did not let us have free access. It's it's not an insult to me, and it's not an affront to me, because I don't take things personal, but I really think that he ought to have used better judgment than to think that I would go in and be disruptive, be out of character. Actually, he knows me really well. It would be out of character for me to behave that way. And if he didn't know, I know he already knows, because I've told him I was personal friends with the chief of police that has been chief of police while he's been in office. And in one period of time, the chief of police's son was a member of the Martinsville Church of Christ at 823 Starling Avenue. He didn't stay. I don't know that he will never change. I think he actually doesn't believe in God at this point. But nevertheless, his father gave him a pass to come on over and be associated with the Church of Christ after the Episcopalian bishop did an investigation on us. I would encourage you to do an investigation on anybody that you're thinking about putting your soul in their hands. Why? Because they end up being the powers that be, the spiritual guidance, and you're not checking. They don't even know the Bible. You will hear as we go along some of the things that Mr. Gallimore has said. So that's the question that has to be answered. Who stopped you? Well, I'm basically saying I did not have to not go after the information. Well, what are you saying, going after? Listen, we were on, there was a river between us and the funeral home. And there were people at the funeral home were taking pictures of individuals that we were using to look and see who was there. For one thing, I've never been in Gallimore's church building because, number one, Gallimore doesn't like me at all, and he was furious at me in his lifetime, and I never let up on him. So I don't know who the members are, wouldn't know one of them. I would not recognize that young man. There's no telling how long that picture is. He's a grown man. And so I would not recognize him. And I'm not after them. It's my business to try to help them out of that situation. And it used to be the case. People are still saying they are polygamists, and they're not saying it in a good way. And so do they deserve to be taken care of as far as not being hurt in our society? The answer is yes. But can you actually take that to a level that is actually not biblical? That would be me, where I'm standing. I don't believe that they deserve to get to go unchallenged in our society because the police say so. And we fight that battle every single day. Every single day. We're basically putting out the information that challenges these individuals to exist that are not in the Bible. And the reason why is because Jesus' words are standing right up here, and every one of you knows this passage. Matthew chapter 12, verse 24 and 25. They're blaspheming Jesus and saying his works are of the devil. And Jesus said, a kingdom divided against itself will never stand. A house divided will not stand, nor a city. And our city actually celebrates, and people celebrate the diversity in their religion, and it's just simply ridiculous. It is headed always, it's headed for disaster. Cannot stand what? Against the devil. That's why we have people in the school system that are taking their clothes off and dancing over at the arts center to raise money. And then your children go back after having seen that. Caleb wrote about it in the newspaper. It was in the newspaper by the newspaper's its own self. I think it's on the front page. They celebrated it. Charles went all over it on his news station. Couldn't believe that the superintendent of the school system was taking herself down to basically, Caleb calls it a unitard. I don't even know these garments, but I know it means that you don't, it's basically the bunny tail from the Playboy Mansion. And she had fishnet stockings on, and she was dancing with a person who was not her husband, as was everybody else that was in the event, and it was celebrated. So here's the thing. I'm going to challenge that. They can do it in America, and it used to be indecent, and it would have been, people would have gone up on charges for that kind of behavior. And the school system would have had a cow or an elephant back in the day over the kinds of things that they're doing. So I'm just saying to you, I am not going to put all the blame on Sheriff Perry. I don't know who all was involved in putting the chill on us. You know, you get information through lines of communication that sometimes are dull. I call the sheriff my own self, and I called him for my own protection as I was talking to him about whether or not the people that I'm talking about in this show and the show that Caleb just did last night, if these people are going to be vengeful. And you say, vengeful? How could they be vengeful? They are going around with 2 wives, you know. I can tell you that's unrestrained behavior in America. And so the women are not going to be telling them to stop it. The women could be like Will Smith's wife. You going to let Johnny Robertson talk about us and Caleb Robertson talk about us like that? Next thing you know, we'll be slapped in Walmart. So, you see what I mean? Do I have a right? Do I have is it real to be worried? Are you stopping these kinds of things, trying to in your community? Are you fighting back against Disney and the CEO who basically openly says that she has 2 queer children and a pansexual and a transsexual? The governor is fighting back over there. He's basically taking away some of their privileges. I don't know the politics of that kind of stuff. I don't really care, but I do know this. I know that being a transgender is a problem. It is sinful. It is a problem also. These children are mixed up. Do you think these children are mixed up? Do you think this young fella, this next generation, you think he's mixed up? Well, you may not think that he thinks he's mixed up, but I'm going to show you some Pentecostal behavior as we go along here that I guarantee you he's mixed up, and so is Sheriff Perry. And so is a huge portion of our live and let live community. Live and let live? Okay, here we go. So if it's okay for them to get a free ride and not be challenged, because that's all we were going to do. I don't know what Charles is going to do. It's news. I know what I was going to do. When I get the information, I put the information in a box, and it's called a TV, and they have to see it aligned and arrayed against the Scripture. And you know what takes place? Maybe for the first time in their life? I make a connection. Gee, you're living in a disconnect. People just do things and they don't even realize I'm disconnected from reality. What we do is line up the thoughts in such a way that for the first time, maybe you're starting to realize, you know, it wasn't one of the best things to do is to give this a pass as if they actually deserve protection above anything that I've seen. And as I said, you could put up things I haven't seen in two big chief tablets. There's a lot of stuff that I haven't seen, but I've not seen anybody get the protection that they had. What does that mean? Locked down. Public sidewalks? No chance. Funeral home? Nope. People on all over the funeral grounds as if, you know, there was terrorists in the area or something. And they're taking video pictures, trying to decide which one of us it is that they're looking at. And then you get to the Memorial Park. Charles is out in the intersection, very, very busy highway. Generally, there are not that many deputies out there for a normal funeral. My wife went to a funeral out there of our son-in-law's best friend, and she thought she was going to be killed on 220. Many wrecks right there where the Memorial Gardens is. It is a mountain, going up a mountain, and people are driving 60, 70 miles an hour. Tractor trailers are on a main artery, and they didn't have police escort as they were lined up out on the highway in a curve. But Mr. Gallimore did. And so, I've never seen anything like it. And as a result of that, you're basically getting a picture And you would not be getting the picture at all because nobody else is touching this. Nobody else would dare touch this, I don't think, besides myself, Caleb, the Church of Christ, and Charles, and the newspaper. I will give the Bulletin their due. The Bulletin is covering this story, and I expect they will continue to cover it because it is news, and we're going to make sure that it stays news. I hope the Roanoke Times covers it. And I know the Washington Post knows about it. They covered this in the 90s. So here's the thing. We put the information in a box. That's what we were wanting to do, is bring you footage, bring you things that will dispel what you heard. I heard Johnny Robertson was spying on people and his sons were running around looking in trash cans at beer bottles and stuff like that. That's what Sarcastic Man or Joe Prater tries to tell you. We're not spying. We're wide open. When we go in, we have our cameras. People know that we're loaded with cameras. We're not going to let them narrate what we did into our community. We're going to make sure that we have the footage, and it has cost us dearly. Again, one of the news stations here locally tore up one of our cameras at a football game right in front of the police. Did the police do anything? No. What did we do? Took it to Star News, and we showed you the behavior of the Pentecostal network. Atrocious. They were a fierce adversary, and I'm talking about fierce in a physical way. So here's the thing. I take blame for being chilled. My determination to make sure that the information is gotten to these individuals so that they can learn and so that you can know who all and what all they're doing. Have they progressed? Are there people in there starting out as young as this young fellow? I mean, he's already made up his mind at this point in his life that he's going to marry 2 women if he can afford it. And so we get to this point, and I just basically have to say, it's partly my issue, and it's partly Charles's issue. And in the days in which we live, when you are basically being told on a regular basis by authority figures, you can't go out of your house and you can't go out with a mask, you can't even go to Bible class, it becomes a very chilling thing to go against the authorities. But as I said, we never quit worshiping. We never let the authorities tell us what we could and could not do when it came to our right to worship. And we stayed on television the entire time. And we tried to send out something good for you and to encourage you and to encourage the leaders where you are. Stand up for the Lord. And the Lord is actually in charge. And so, what if? You can what if all day long. So here we are. We're basically in this position. And now, I'm going to give you some information that we already had. And what it is basically is designed to, you could be sitting here and you are watching and you're waiting because you know we're going to come up with something next. But at this moment, this is when you really need to say to yourself, okay, Johnny has framed this fairly well. At least I hope you say that. And we can see some issues going on here. I didn't know these polygamists were actually planning on, creating a full-out colony. And, he got some guys in there that's looked like they got more going than Gallimore has for himself. His big thing was he looked like Elvis, and he was big and muscled up. And so got some individuals in there that's got way more sense than Gallimore. They got a lot more tools than Gallimore. They've got computers, they've got the internet, they got YouTube, and they can spread this message. And so who are we spreading, and what message are they actually espousing? Here we go. Mr. Branham. Let's look. What's the Bible say?
Hello, Johnny.
Hello.
I to interject a little bit on what you're saying about the polygamist cult and about the extreme sex education that the left wing of our political system is pushing on children.
So can I interrupt there? The left,
Absolutely.
The left wing is not in charge of our educational system. Donald Trump had his go at the educational system. George Bush had his go at it. They didn't straighten anything out. Now, I'm not saying that Trump didn't say that he was going to. He said he's going to get rid of the Department of Education. But they're all in this together.
Department of Indoctrination is more like it.
Well, they're all in it together. And I wouldn't give 2 pennies for Mitch McConnell. As far as corporate America is concerned, he is an enabler. And so, but go ahead. It is just as liberal as it can be, and it is wild. So let's give them both their due because they're both involved in it and have been for years.
And they keep on adding letters to the LGBT acronym,
Yes.
and it's only a matter of time before they get to P for pedophiles.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
They're going to push for pedophile acceptance. The political arena is. You just watch. And if we don't stand up for the children of our country and do it now, they're going to fall to predators, all kinds of sexual predators in their school system, and who knows what else. And if you won't stand up for your own children, I don't know what to say to you.
Correct. And I'm fairly certain that you're in Arkansas. Am I right?
You're 100% correct.
So Arkansas has one of the few legislative bodies that has penalized doctors for being involved in sex change or gender activity. And so I'm very happy, and I'm praying for the legislature over there, the persons that are willing to do that. And so I must say, while we're talking about transgender and the LGBT, and I'm not even going to try with the acronym, these people are very mixed up. I know plenty of people, I'm saying we know people intimately that are in the throes of this, and it is a very, very terrible arena. They're having a lot of problems with their identity, and I want them to know, as we're talking about this, that I am very concerned about them, and particularly the children with gender problems. For that lady, CEO of Disney, what are your thoughts as to how her children became transgender and pansexual? What would your first guess be how they became that way?
You want the truth?
Sure.
Okay. I think that a lot of parents actually push their children into this kind of thinking because it gains the parents notoriety and money and attention, and the parents want that. So they, drop these little seeds in their children's minds that you're not really a boy, you're a girl, or you're not really a girl, you're a boy.
So we all know.
That's what I think about it.
Well, someone said that her cat is a vegan, and we all know how the cat got to be a vegan.
Exactly.
So, thank you for the call.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, that is one of our persons that is close to us in Arkansas. We're together in spirit, not in body most of the time, and it is also a person who is a very generous person to the work here. And if you've been generous in the past, we're saying to people, you're always generous to us. And we appreciate you never know what kind of state we were in when your generosity came into play at that moment. And it doesn't mean you're not generous if we don't see anything from you. So I'm not making an appeal. I'm saying happy to hear from you. And it's good to know that people are watching on YouTube. Now, here we go. What were we talking? What were we saying? Who are these people? Polygamists. Well, we know polygamists, they're basically individuals who they believe that you can have multiple wives. Well, that's what they believe, but is that all? 331. Now, this is a very lengthy, this would blow your mind if I would play this, but I'm going to go to 331 so you can hear Mr. Branham himself, and it basically will beg the question as to why he was not challenged. Take a listen.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Now, my precious brother, I know this is a tape also. Now, don't get excited. Let me say this with godly love. The hours approach where it can't hold still on these things no more. It's too close to the coming, see? Trinitarianism is of the devil. I say that, thus saith the Lord. Amen.
When you're raised the way that we are, it becomes a second nature.
Okay.
That's their justification.
All you Trinitarians, what does that mean? I think you know what that means. If you don't, then you're not insulted. Mr. Branham said that, which includes Sheriff Perry, you're of the devil. Well, that's, it is their freedom to say that. But should they not be challenged? I'm saying you're basically saying on the heels of the right to bury your dead. that your position, which is extreme to say the least, polygamists, and you might as well say, if you're going to let them have a full out pass and media can't ask them questions and we can't find out just what kind of cult we have going on there, and some people say, well, you shouldn't call them a cult. Listen, people call us a cult all the time, and I don't care that you call me a cult, because one of the things about a cult that you'll never get stuck on us is the secrecy associated with a cult. Do you know what's going on over here? Did you know he was with his third wife before he died, that he had a third wife? Did you know these young fellows were actually browsing around to get, hey, if you've got a good looking daughter, what would be keeping them from wanting to marry your daughter, and they already got a wife, and now you're all involved in Branhamism. And as for that matter, basically, because of Sheriff Perry's dictation, we don't have any information to give you right now. And so you're finding it out from us, and all of this is archived information. And so, did you know? Did Sheriff Perry know? Did the funeral home know? Did the funeral home care? That's a money-making machine right there. And they have been closed up for a long time. Do they care that basically the doctrine that was being spewed out of there is of that nature? That Branham is saying all you Trinitarians are of the devil? And Gallimore was basically grooming a bunch of boys to be eyeballing girls in this area and setting them up to actually go after. It's not a stretch at all. To go after another wife when you can afford it, which basically means your daughter could actually be in this group anytime in the future. And so what it could have been the ideology of Sheriff Perry to keep this on the down low and maybe it just go away. And nobody would actually know about them, and they'd be this sleepy little group. Listen, there's no such thing as a sleepy little group. This is a seed. This is a seed, and seeds always produce after their kind, and it's not rooted out. It's still here. You may say, well, Johnny, you think that we're all basically children of the devil too. So, you think half the people around you are children of the devil too. You just won't be honest. I mean, I have people all the time that call in, and we have that box that we put them in where they end up running into all four sides of it, and they basically end up saying things that they would have never said. And oftentimes, oftentimes their husband tell them, get off the phone. And why did you do that? Because people recognize your voice, and they still like me, but they end up admitting, you know what? He got stuff out of me on live television that I wouldn't have said if it had not been for the ability that these guys have, that is Caleb and I, and men that are associated with the Church of Christ that are going out into your area, knocking doors all the time, trying to influence you, going into the airwaves all the time, trying to influence you. And we're doing it. I know we're doing it because I know there's no doubt in my mind that Sheriff Perry will actually tune in, and I hope that he does. And I know that Charles will be doing another talk show at 4 o'clock on this information. It's not just my information, but that information that is out there already archived. And much of it is archived on our computers that he doesn't have. So that was Mr. Branham. He's a polygamist, and he believes that there's one in the Godhead. That puts him right up there with Early Dillard. How about that? Lawrence Campbell. One in the Godhead, Jesus only. You know, they don't believe that stuff very much anymore. It used to be they were our number one caller, or they were the number one problem for the callers that called us. All the denominations around here, the sects, denominationalism is a sanitized way of saying sectarian, heretic,
way of life,
heretic and sectarian, same thing. Dividing up into parties that are against each other, and you're following someone that is not following the Bible. You use a term, denomination, and you think about going to the bank, and the banker says, the lady says to you, what denomination do you want? I want hundreds. What do you think? Big bills. And denomination sounds good. Sanitized it, didn't it? No. Sects. They're of the devil. God is not the author of confusion. 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verse 33. Let all things be done decently in order. 1 Corinthians 14:40. And that basically gets over then to what she said. The husband is the boss. We can sing, but that's about it. And he basically, Gallimore was just screaming at the top of his lungs a little while ago. You didn't get to see the clip. Maybe we'll let you see it in another segment. He was saying that you can't even have women judges, that women should be in the home. That boy was saying that women should be in the home and the men should work. And if I can afford it, I'll have 2 wives. And so that's where we are. And so I don't have anything new for you, but I do have something that will help you to connect why Sheriff Perry would be the way he is. And the decision that he made, he is doing the same thing that I'm doing. He has voices that are going on in his head that create dissonance. That's noise. Cognitive dissonance. What should I do? I'm an authority figure. What should I do? God is watching. What should I do? Johnny Robertson is talking to me. What should I do? Charles Rourke is not a favorite person of mine, not a favorite personality of Mr. Perry's, and he wishes that he would diminish. So what do? I'm friends with BTW. He's friends with BTW, the local Pentecostal network, who basically doesn't happen to be one in the Godhead, but they're basically not helping anybody during the COVID. What does that mean? Did you not hear that 10% of the bishops of the Church of God in Christ actually died? Well, I thought that was a healing group. Yeah, so did they. So did the kids. The kids are just exactly like Elwood Gallimore's kids. They grew up thinking that somebody was getting healed, and all of them go to the hospital, and on top of that, all of them have insurance if they can afford it. Now, why would you do that if you believe? We're going to just move along here and get you, I hope what I can say is get you worked up, because that's what answers cognitive dissonance. One of the voices becomes louder and more impressive on your brain, and then you start letting some information in, and that's exactly how I've aligned my lesson today. 2 hours on this particular piece of information. And so let's notice then the local Pentecostal station, and I want to give you I'm saying a exact piece of what this looks like. I'm saying cognitive dissonance. Now, you might say to yourself, this guy really doesn't have any influence. Listen, we have tons of influence. As you watch this, one of the things, let me cue it up. Now, as you're watching this, you need to watch logos. You see the logo? Expect a miracle. If we were to, we're going to continue with this, and I'm going to skip it and come back, but they're going to end up having a blind person be healed. Now, you're on a show that says, expect a miracle, and then somebody calls in and says they just were prayed for and now they're not blind, and the dude just about falls out of his chair. Well, as long as he's been preaching, it should be old hat. But he acted like it was just the most amazing thing it is when somebody lies on television, and you have to act like, you see, when you're acting, you end up doing stupid stuff. If you really had that kind of power associated with yourself and your ministry, you would not allow yourself to act like something miraculous just happened and has never happened before. Because your show's called Expect a Miracle. You should have a miracle going all the time. I mean, Jesus was famous all over in 1 year. And the apostles, I mean, Paul had his information and his activity and the miracles associated with himself and the ministry, basically had him being called the person who turned the world upside down. And so Stephen Tench ended up raising money for his son after a car wreck. Why? There's no miracles to be had. But here we go. This is BTW, Beyond the Walls. Now, I call them Behind the Walls because I took a picture of the owner today, Chad Hall. This is owned by the chief officer of this particular apparatus now is Shively Electric. And so if you did not know that, that's a piece of information that you need to know. You might be wanting to know why are these people shoveling this kind of stuff onto our community. Take a look.
I never went to one homecoming, not one prom. That was a sin when I was a kid. I never went to one homecoming, not one prom. That was a sin when I was a kid.
Okay. That was a pastor that came in to Mercy Crossing, where Jackie Poe was at the time, where these guys, BTW, that was running BTW, it was Chad and Rodney in the day. Rodney has been let go. His reputation isn't up to par with Chad and Mr. Shively, so now he's been bought out. I don't know if he ever got his money or not, but he's unleashed and he's no longer with them. But here's the thing. Are you watching? This is a logo that says BTW 21. This is TGI Friday. That's the Virginia lottery over there that they're advertising in this banner. And this is an uptown party on Friday night. And BTW is putting it on. Now, this is BTW against itself. What in the world would turn BTW against itself? Can I tell you? Cognitive dissonance, noise in your head, and noise from the community. God bless this community. Good for you for calling these guys up and saying things to them. Again, good for Charles. Somebody might say, well, they're Charles's competitor. Listen, they're not just Charles's competitor. They have an unfair advantage in that they actually have tax exemption, a particular kind of tax exemption. They're a nonprofit, and they're basically doing things like this in the name of a religious broadcast station, beyond the walls, TV. They're trying to get the Pentecostalism beyond the walls, and this is what they're running on a Christian station, supposedly. Now, watch it play out, and listen to, we'll narrate as we go along. Okay, the man said at Mercy Crossing, all of these folk are in collusion together, money flowing. And he said, I never went to a prom, never went to a dance. Dancing was a sin when I was growing up. Here's BTW. There's a banner that says Coors and Smirnoff. If you're not aware, I have no idea what all Smirnoff makes. Only thing I ever heard that they made or that was popular when I was growing up is vodka. So Smirnoff and Coors are on the logo there. You got the banner for the TGI Friday, you got the lottery going on, and now you got a band up there playing, and now you're bringing in the dance, and listen to the words. Don't forget the logo. She's a double-fisted, drinking son of a gun. Pinball playing, double-fisted, drinking son of a gun. Now you got to rhyme with son of a gun. Are you ready for the lyric? Is that what tight jeans are all about? I did not get that. Well, I know a bunch of women that don't get it, but this girl is going to go ahead and tell it. I like to wear my jeans a little tight so I can watch the boys get undone. So you're telling me in the lyrics of your song, or were you just trying to rhyme? Oh no, she definitely knows exactly what she's doing, and she is telling the truth. Suit up in skin-tight jeans, and I don't know whose attention that you're getting when you're trying to zip those things and like press your body down into it, but I know what you are doing. You're getting most of the percent of the male population as they go by, they actually have to make a decision to stay with it. What are we talking about? Your rear end is what we're talking about. We have to make a decision to stay with it or keep moving, keep our eyes off of anything that would actually be an enticement. You mean to tell me that males are enticed to girls' rear end? What planet are you living on? You know what I'm saying? And why are people coming up to TGI Friday? It's so that they can see, why are men coming up there? So they can see women who are dressed like this, and they can hear women get the message that this girl is putting out to go ahead and do something with those tight jeans and get yourself a drink while you're at it. We are advertising Coors and Smirnoff. And so by the end of the evening, dancing, drinking, it was a sin when Mercy Crossing visiting pastor was growing up. He never went to a prom or a dance. It was a sin. Well, BTW, they're pretty lax. Pentecostals, don't you know? Oh, well, a moment ago you were talking about Branham and Gallimore, and you were saying they're pretty strict. I didn't say they're strict. They're out of their mind. It's a lunacy, the ability to actually be that unhinged in your head where you actually think that it's okay for you to have 3 wives and be a pastor on top of that. I had him on the phone one night and asked him if he was a pastor. After I asked him, was he having sex with 2 women at the same time? He said he was married to both of them, and then he said he was a pastor. Didn't have sense enough to know that a pastor, bishop, elder, has to be the husband of 1 wife. I'm saying the stuff that guy don't know and the things that people don't know. And so while we're at it, just make sure, because it's very likely. Now, we're going to look at Psalm 106:34 while we're here, but we're mingled among the heathen and learned their works. Now, what's happening is BTW is a bunch of heathens. and they're mingling for the dollar with all this kind of stuff, and you're in there with them. And, you know, while we're talking about this, you know, if it is the case, I'm saying seriously, if it is the case that it is okay for Mr. Gallimore and he should go, his group should go untalked to, nobody trying to hurt those individuals. I'm the best friend that they've ever had. And anybody that's come out of a sect will tell you that I'm the best friend they ever had, that they had no idea what they were actually doing that was unbiblical, and the life they could have been living, and the people they could be living around, and the power that they actually have to get the change in the world. They tell me I'm the best friend they ever had as they came out of that. And so for them to go unchallenged is simply ridiculous. It basically is saying that our community is fine with people that have 2, 3 wives, believe that you Trinitarians are children of the devil, and whatever else do they believe? Do you know? I mean, she said the man is the boss. Is that really what the Bible says? So the PTW is mingling with the heathens, and guess what they're doing? When you mingle with the heathens, what do? You learn their works and you serve their idols, which is a snare unto them. So you got these folks up here, they are advertising, and we're talking about it, and you say, well, it's not doing any good. We will continue to watch. See the children learning? See the children learning the heathen's works? BTW is behind the beer. They're behind the music. They're behind the tight jeans. We basically made it impossible for her to show herself in our video. They're behind the dancing. We're letting you see these little kids. They're learning this is what mom and daddy do. Pentecostals used to teach against this. Even at this particular time, they were having sermons where somebody was saying it. He was willing to say it. And that's what they're doing. They're actually learning what they do as second nature because their parents did it in front of them. Continue. Here for the party, drinking, dancing, Smirnoff and Coors. And buy you a lottery ticket, which you have no more chance of winning the lottery than you do being the president. As a matter of fact, the odds are better for you to be the next president than for you to actually win the lottery. Chug-a-lug right there in front of everybody.
That was a sin when I was a kid. I never went to one homecoming, not one prom. That was a sin when I was a kid. I never went to one homecoming, not one prom. That was a sin when I was a kid.
Get a little bit crazy just because I can, you know what I mean. One week after we exposed them, where'd the logo go? Where did the Smirnoff and the Coors banner go? That's what I call repentance. They didn't repent all the way, but I'm saying, listen, if you do support us, you can mark it down. I just showed you the influence that we have, the Church of Christ, body of Christ, Christians in Virginia. This is a network that is home in Martinsville, and they're hooked up with all the sects, particularly the Pentecostals in the area. Now, let me ask you this. Why did Tim Whitehart have to go? Why could Tim Whitehart not just marry the girl that was his mistress? I'm saying, I would ask Sheriff Perry that. He does need to make a comment about this. If we were, in fact, chilled by his directives and all of the police and the shutdown, the lockdown of the funeral, the graveyard, never seen anything like it. And so, I might have seen something in COVID that was similar to it because the authorities said somebody might catch the virus, but that wasn't what it was. That wasn't totally outside of anything rational. As a matter of fact, you're basically making them even more rational. You're making them more of a accepted group of individuals in this area, and everybody out of here is talking about us. You don't know that? I'm saying The Washington Post, I know the Washington Post has an article, whether or not it's coming out or not. And it's nothing new for the Washington Post to write about Martinsville, Virginia. And a lot of it isn't good. And so we're sitting here watching these individuals who are representing, Mr. Shively is everywhere. He's in Roanoke, he's in Rocky Mount, he's in Martinsville, and last I looked, he was in charge. And then you got Chad, and Chad ain't hitting on much. So as far as like making a difference, making some money, giving you the party places to go, but somebody told them, y'all need to cover that stuff up. Logo, advertising for the beer, still got the lottery up there. Nevertheless, you see what happened. Okay, now what were we doing? We're trying to make a voice enter into your space. So BTW actually covered up the beers and the banners. Yes, they did. They actually covered it up after we exposed their behavior. And people started calling, people were talking, it was all over Star News as well, and so it made a difference. Now, here's the thing. Are you listening at this point? Now, let's go back. That's the Pentecostal headquarters. There's not any more Pentecostal information that is being fed into this area than is coming out of that area. And that's, you might say, man, they're just about broke. Well, you know what? They've been around for 20 years, so they've done a lot of damage in the 20 years. All right, so let's see if we can get you to think just that moment, because you got that voice going on. Man, BTW is advertising beer, drinking, dancing, and even song lyrics, and kids out there getting involved with it. Women chug-a-lugging right there, all dancing in front of men. Sometimes they're dancing with each other, women and women. And so, what do you want me to hear, Johnny? Okay, here's what I want you to hear. I want you to hear Mark Stock, who was the music minister over at not Beyond the Walls, but at Mercy Crossing, where all of this originated.
To come to your church. One reason Jana is so inspirational is she happens to be a non-sighted individual, and she's a woman of faith. She will get on an airplane by herself and fly.
She's blind, and she's a woman of faith. Now, this is what I say. When you're religious, you're basically not engaged at all. It's just the natural thing that happens. Or were you looking for error? Did you not hear that? I'm saying anybody who's thinking at all, you just heard Mark Stock say, she is a non-sighted. Why didn't you just go, is it disrespectful to say a person is blind? Or did you not want to give yourself away as you praised her and try to get people to come and hear her? She's a woman of faith. If you've got faith and you're being praised by Mark Stocks, why are you still blind? Because generally it's blamed on the blind person. So if she is still blind and she came in here and she's still blind and left, then what's up? Okay, you're ready for it, aren't you?
Her eyes,
yes, Lord,
open.
Yes.
In the name of Jesus.
So far, the most popular program airs on Friday nights, when Hall and local pastor Stephen Tinch takes grounds, all connected with so-called BTW 21.
I command her eyes,
yes, Lord,
open.
Yes.
In the name of Jesus.
So far, the most popular program airs on Friday nights, when Hall and local pastor Stephen Tinch take phone calls and attempt miracles on the air. And on this night, a caller says their prayers returned her eyesight.
She can see. Glory to God.
Did you hear that, brother? Somebody actually is able to see as a result of what we're talking about. See what I'm saying? Are you watching this? Or are you just basically willing to accept Elwood Gallimore? Let them go. What's the big deal? What's the big deal? Do you not realize what this is doing to our society? I'm saying, do you not realize how many people have quit religion altogether because of these two? People like them everywhere. This guy, you know there's no miracles coming through these guys. They are connected with Mercy Crossing and Mark Stocks, And he's talking about a woman of faith. So she is, if she's a woman of faith being proclaimed by them as a woman of faith, but she's still blind, then either she doesn't have the faith to be healed or they don't have the faith to be able to heal. Anyway, you look at it, you know both of them go, it's a charade. I'm saying this is ridiculous. And are you in that moment? Sheriff Perry, are you in that moment? If you're involved in the Pentecostal movement, claiming that y'all have miracles and whatever, and for that matter, why, I don't want to bring up the gentleman's name because I really have a great deal of respect for the former pastor who was over at Compassion Church because, and I have a respect for the guy in Oklahoma who runs the organization. Because once we put the cameras on them and basically let it be known that we were going to do a show on what they were doing and what they were planning to do, which is have a secret meeting amongst themselves, and we're not going to put it on Facebook, and they were going to get rid of the pastor. And so what actually happened is the pastor got the chance to openly repent of being involved with 3 women at the same time. And so I don't know what the big deal was, really and truly, because it's acceptable behavior for a polygamist. And by the way, this is a news organization from Roanoke that is peering into our community, and they're making fun. There is no doubt about it. You've got Whitey Taylor up there running a racetrack in the Ferrum Rocky Mount area, and he had a 20-something-year-old girl being married to an 80-year-old man on his racetrack. Everybody's cussing up there, and he's got his Bible out and acting like a preacher, and he got his degree from Cha-Cha's University here, a Bible college here in Martinsville, Virginia, that's run, and funded by the Episcopals and the Methodists and a lot of big-wig individuals here in Martinsville. It's a joke. And you know it's a joke. Your kids know it's a joke. But why do you stay? The reason you stay is what we started with. When you're in religion, you're not looking for your position to be exposed. And I'm saying, that's what your pastor wants. He doesn't want you to question him. Why are we so looked down on in this area? Because we bring up the questions. Sheriff Perry kept us from asking anybody a question. I wasn't going to talk to Sabrina. Basically, what I would like to have done is after the funeral was over, if I recognize someone in the process of people getting in their car, I'm not going to bother somebody while they're grieving. Now, I have had to do shows where individuals in our area actually allowed it to go over the airwaves that some young men that were just graduating that had a wreck out on Carver Road, 48 full beer cans strode all over the road, and 1 or 2 of them died, and one said something unintelligible to the EMT, and she called in on television and said that he prayed the sinner's prayer and he's saved. And they preached the boy into heaven. Even Kelly Ratcliffe, who is the manager, I'm told, at the Memorial Gardens, the graveyard where Mr. Gallimore was interred, even Kelly Ratcliffe is said publicly, everybody's not going to heaven that gets preached into heaven. And so I did cover that extensively. We're not going to let our community be filled with young men and women that think that they can actually fill up on beer and race down the road and then die and everything's okay. It's not okay. That's a terrible idea. Juice up, gas up, and get going down the road. Bad idea. And we cannot let that actually be the precedent that is set. Who did it? The Methodists over in Fieldale? Well, that was unkind and unfeeling. I get it. I hated it. Cognitive dissonance. People everywhere, members of the Church of Christ, didn't like it. I don't care. You see, at the end of the day, what we're doing here is eternal. You will die. You can complain about me, and eventually you're going to die. And you'll be out of the picture as far as, your ability to be noise in my head. I don't care about that stuff. We're on a mission here, and the mission is get the division out, give the truth a chance, and are you seeing it right now? The church that is the birthplace of a BTW has a preacher that is saying drinking and dancing is a sin, always was a sin when he was a kid, and they're promoting it. And then you turn around and you have the music minister over there at Mercy Crossing saying that a woman of faith who is blind is coming and he wants you to hear her, and then these two get on television And they basically say that there was a person healed of blindness right there. And Roanoke, that was Channel 10, just having a ha-ha moment. Just, look at those idiots down in Martinsville, Henry County. That's what they say, y'all. I'm saying everybody talks about us. These people are making you the laughingstock of the entire region. And Oral Roberts used to come in here. I have known people here in Henry County that knew Oral Roberts. Guy told me that Oral Roberts came in, set his tent on River Hill. He said, somebody here has a $100 bill in their pocket and the Lord wants them to give it to me. He said he got up and gave him a $100 bill. He went outside the tent and he said, man, I don't even have money for my rent. That's Oral Roberts. $6 million or you're going to die is what God said. You got to build that tower up there at the university. What do they do at that university? Teach medicine? Oh, my. Oh. Did that not get you? Teaching medicine at Oral Roberts University? Why, he's one of the most famous faith healers there is. Oh, but they got to have doctors. Why? I don't know. It makes no sense to me. But I'm saying you're just drinking that Kool-Aid, and hopefully it just got a little bit bitter today. You can get past me. I know I'm obnoxious to you. I can't help the way I look. I am old. I am tired. My foot is hurting. I got a boot on and a crock on the other foot. And we've been working hard. And then for 2 days solid, we're wondering if we're going to have a brush with the police. And now I'm stirring the fire. I'm waiting on my lawyer to call me when I get off because I'm fixing to stir it even more. Listen, folks, this is a journey that actually has eternity at its end. It's its goal. Are you saved already? You member of the Church of Christ? Raised in the Church of Christ? Let me tell you something. You were not raised in the Church of Christ, and you ought to be ashamed for saying such a thing. That's sectarian talk. You mingle with the heathens too long. Psalm 106, 34, 35. That's heathenistic, denominational, sectarian talk. In the Bible, it's called the language of Ashdod. You were not raised in the church. You have to be added to the church. Well, while our friends are listening, listen, you are our friend. Just because I tell you the truth, am I become your enemy? I mean, Paul said that in Galatians 4:16. It is a scripture. Am I your enemy because I'm telling you the truth? Each time I get into my computer here and show you the King James on the subject, what was I actually about to look at? Let me think just a moment. Hour and 25 minutes without a break. Let me take a hydrate. Added to the church. I know I'm talking about Pentecostals most of the time while I'm talking about Branhamites. That would be Mr. Gallimore and his group. And I am sorry for your loss. And there would be no reason for you to think that I am not sorry for the grief that you're having to deal with. But what I'm more sorry about is the fact that nobody could get to Mr. Gallimore and nobody's getting to his family nor his church. Acts chapter 2, verse 41, they that gladly received his word were baptized, and the same day were added unto them 3,000 souls. And in verse 47, it actually describes what the addition is involving. Praising God and having favor with all the people, and the Lord added to the church daily such as should be saved. You were added or you ain't in it. And while our Baptist friends are watching, you were voted on, or you're not in, unless y'all have given that up too. By the way, the SBC, Southern Baptist Convention, is going to have a split in August. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I can say if they put Tom Askell in, then they're going to have a bunch of people like they did in the days of Jimmy Carter. They're going to be dropping out. They'll be done with that. So it's a good time to get out. Some of your friends, a lot of your loved ones are going to get out. It's going to be a split down the lines of women preachers and some of the things the girl from Arkansas was talking about, some of the gender identity and that kind of politics. Those folk have the upper hand for a bit, and they're causing havoc. And so I hope that they do have a split. A good thing for Southern Baptists would be for the Reformed faith to get in there, because that is a killer. That's basically Calvinism, and you're selected. Before the foundation of the world, you're either elected or you're damned. And so, at some point, you don't even realize it. You're actually not evangelizing because you don't believe you can evangelize. It's an act of God that has to operate on somebody, and it doesn't have anything to do with evangelism. It is God's sovereign will It's the best thing that could happen to the Southern Baptists, in my opinion, because it will ruin all of them. They will be gone. Well, why do you say that? Do you know any primitive Baptists anymore? Well, I know a bunch of primitive Baptists. Are they meeting? Not much. That's right. They die out because they don't believe in evangelizing. That's God's business. Some of them don't even teach their children because they believe that that is doing God's business for God. They're elect or they're not. They don't ever have to hear about Jesus. So that's where we are. Now I'm asking you, are you learning anything tonight, today, this afternoon? We're live here in the Reedsville, emanating from the Reedsville market back into Martinsville and out on simultaneously to YouTube and into your home. And you can cut this, if you have the capability to download, the expertise to download, you can take segments of this that you think that would help one of your family members and put it on a thumb drive and send it to them in the mail. And say, just tell them, man, where we live, if you're around here, I mean, you just might as well say it. It's headline news all the way to Roanoke. And could be even more as it goes along. And just tell people in your family, we got a bunch of polygamists down here. And guess what? The local authorities here did not let any media be on a sidewalk, did not get to talk to anybody. Do you think those people, I'm just asking you to think about this. I'm talking about Paul Kennedy. Do you think that those people did not want to talk about their faith? I mean, Elwood Gallimore is the loudest mouth in the county. Paul might be saying back to me, no, Johnny, you're the loudest mouth. Well, that's a compliment to me. I'm not going to be silent or ashamed of the faith that I am actually in charge of, that is animating my system. So if you said that while you're listening, because I know Paul's listening because this is actually getting in his pocket. Why would Paul Kennedy, let's ask the question, Paul, did you have anything to do with the sheriff's decision? Kelly, did you have anything to do with the sheriff's decision? I'm not mad at Wright's Funeral Home, even though they did not honor the request of the man who was a member of the body of Christ here in Martinsville, Henry Carter. I'm not mad at Wright's Funeral Home. Matter of fact, I say go to Wright's. They did not do nearly the damage if Paul Kennedy was involved in not letting anybody talk to the congregants of the biggest mouth, loudest, hardest pusher in the county. I'm saying that dude put you on the map. All kinds of media outlets took up the Gallimore story in the early 1990s. And they continued to beat the drum as he would do things. And then we put him out all over everywhere. You think all of them did not want to talk about their faith? And do you think they don't want to talk now? So you see, that's the thing. Were you involved in that? I know Wrights is outdoing y'all. There's no doubt about it. And it could be Charles is cringing now. I'm sure all of them are customers. But it's just like, why would you do such a thing? You think we were going to bust up in a funeral? I know that Paul Kennedy knows good and well that he himself has invited himself into a graveside service and actually said something after the person was actually finished with the sermon, with the graveside service. Do you remember that, Paul? He had to put in the faith-only passage while it certainly wasn't me. I would have never let him get away with answering me back at a funeral. But it is the case that he did that. And so that's the question. Was he involved? Who was involved? Why is it that you're not getting to actually hear anything? Okay, here we go. This is going to be as we go out. Are we influencing anybody? Let's see. I have to look at 5 minutes and 25 seconds on Bronco Billy's. Another one of the customers of BTW. What is it? It's a bar. Here we go.
The bar at all. I think his issue is with 21.
Well, all he's talked about is
That's right, Charles. My problem is the bar and the dancing. And my bigger problem, along with it, is BTW actually being their big sponsor. And Rodney going down there with his wife and saying he's dancing. I basically saw him. I took him at his word and look, there he was in the commercial. Where's his wife now? She ain't with him. What's dancing do? Drinking do? What does it do for you, Rodney? Doesn't have a wife. Listen to this.
And in a sense, it really promotes what's going on there.
they have straightened that place out from what I can gather.
Right. Well, I will tell you that for the folks that run that bar, this probably has been the best publicity that they've gotten since it started.
Charles,
I mean,
you should know better than that. Publicity, from what does the Bible say, is not good publicity, and it don't help them. That's why they're all complaining. That guy's calling and complaining because it don't help them. Continue to listen.
Now know that they have dancing Thursday nights at 7.
Let me tell you something. Since this mess of yours and Bob's has started and went on,
Yeah.
I talked to a guy today, and their business has dropped off over half.
Because of the discussion about the dancing and the alcohol.
Because all this garbage is going on.
Mm-hmm. Charles is saying we're probably helping their business. No. The woman who owned the business couldn't even go into Walmart without people trash talking her. Why y'all open up that business over there? Why y'all got the drinking and the dancing? And why are you on BTW advertising? They're on a Christian network. Well, number one, they're not a Christian network. Number two, people shouldn't be going in there drinking and dancing just because they're at the hotel. And number two, if it is a restaurant, which it was, the only way they can have a liquor license is if the ratio is high enough of food to alcohol. You have to sell a certain amount of food before you can get or keep your liquor license. So if you are actually going to an establishment that sells liquor, you can just, it has a restaurant, you can mark it down that you are actually helping further the liquor industry right there. They have to, Applebee's, they have to sell a certain ratio, a higher ratio of food than to do alcohol in order to have their liquor license. And so half the business, and they're out of business now. So there you go. Now, here's the question. Are you getting it yet? Now, I'm fixing to move up just a little bit more. You know, we started out by talking about a state trooper who allowed himself to tell too much of his state trooper stories to one of his former managers of his campaign, and we're going to let you listen to, see what we're going to look at, how far we're going to look into this one. Let's see, just a minute. We're going to let you listen to what I think is a very, 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 very good piece of information. Now, this is, did I say 156? 156. Are you ready? This is one of the most well-known lawyers around, far and wide. He was Jerry Falwell Sr.'s personal lawyer. He has actually given me an interview on occasion when I was trying to figure out what to do with the Danville authorities, and he gave me very good information and even told me first-hand stories about the sheriffs, that police chief actually, that had been in Danville during the civil rights that he knew personally. Take a listen. 156 is where we're going to go.
City manager to have a meeting with Chancellor Falwell. Yeah,
Very interesting.
and I guess offices? Was a meeting in the office?
Not to my knowledge.
Was a meeting in his office?
That's correct.
I just assume it was. This is pretty shocking.
Well, you know.
I mean, to have a man, a city manager, go there and all forthrightness being open.
There's a lawyer talking. This is the city attorney. And he is talking, and that is Mr. McCrory, who was Jerry Falwell Sr.'s personal lawyer. Jerry had died at this time, and Junior was the president, and they're in the office of the president, the chancellor, actually. They're in the office of the chancellor. And you have a sitting mayor. This gentleman is in awe. He just shocked, he said. A sitting mayor, city manager, and others were in the office of Jerry Falwell Jr., who is a top-rate lawyer himself, and the personal lawyer of his daddy, and they had a camera. And they were recording the city, the manager and the mayor. Why were they recording them? According to them, they were recording them because they would say one thing when they were over at the president's office, and it had to do with enlarging the university's footprint, and the different things had to be done, and the monies that the city was going to have to put in, and they would say one thing while they were there, and then they'd do another. And so this is what they said. It's in this, you can look this up. It's in the news cycle online. It has to do with Lynchburg. You have to look it up in Lynchburg, Virginia. And the guy's name is McCrory, and it's spelled M-C-R-O-R-I-E. Now, shocking. Listen to what comes next.
to meet and have it recorded?
Without anyone being even notified. I mean, it'd be one thing to say, for the purposes of our records, we'd like to record the meeting, just want to let you know it's being recorded. That would be the polite thing to do. I know that in Virginia it's legal to tape a conversation provided that one party in the conversation knows that it's being taped.
Let's get this. This is what we always get. When people actually are caught saying things that we know they say and they know they say, but they don't want you to know because it would create cognitive dissonance. It would create noise that you don't usually let in your head because you're disengaged, because you're not looking for error for these people that are supposed to be looking out for you. Now we've turned our attention back to police, city council, the lawyers, that group. And he said it would have been the polite thing to do. That was not very polite for y'all to record us. I mean, we went over there in good faith. Well, you know, sometimes it just gets down to the point where you have to get stuff on the record. And so, you know, here's a very, very funny thing. Did you know that if you are a hearing impaired person, you can actually get an app that will bring up a text version of what you're actually saying, what you're talking, you know, to another person, what they're saying to you? And you can actually read that, and it's preserved for you. So you have a written copy and your phone. You know, everybody knows your phone is a recorder. So that was not very polite. And it's not that it's not polite necessarily. They were caught, and they knew they were caught. They were shocked. And then this gentleman weighs in, city council member, and he has to say, you know, in Virginia, let's hear that again. Because, you know, there are a lot of people that still say to us, you could be sued. Are you ready?
This being open and going to a meeting and have it recorded?
I don't know if you noticed the lady that's right beside the attorney there. She is really getting a kick out of this.
I mean, it'd be one thing to say, for the purposes of our records, we'd like to record the meeting, just want to let you know it's being recorded. That would be the polite thing to do. I know that in Virginia it's legal to tape a conversation provided that one is being recorded. That would be the polite thing to do. I know that in Virginia it's legal to tape a conversation provided that one party in the conversation knows that it's being taped. You don't have to notify the other party, but...
Actually, if you're just a party to the conversation.
So, yeah, you have to be a party of the conversation.
Now, you just got your legal advice, and that's one of the smartest lawyers I've known. And he's basically, he's not caught at anything. He's not ashamed of himself one bit. I'm saying he's ready to go. And he's letting them know, we got you. Saying one thing, and if they did or they don't, I mean, it's alleged to me. I didn't hear the tape, but they sure act like that, you know, something's up there. What's going on? Why don't y'all have to tape us? And it'd been nice if you'd let us know, and then we wouldn't have said the things we were said, and you wouldn't have got us on record saying it. So, and that's what he was saying. You can read the transcript. This is what y'all said, and we're tired of it. So, folks, what are we doing? What were we wanting to talk to these folk about? Why are we so aggravated and anxious? Because this would have been one of those moments where we put information into your head, and it would help you to realize that these folk need to be talked out of what they're doing. Well, who's going to talk them out? Who is the group? Who is the one source that is going to talk this stuff out of their head? Who's going to even approach them? Because, I mean, Lane, is it okay for me to judge this business about where Mr. Gallimore is? Can you go to heaven having 3 wives at the same time? Or 2 wives at the same time? Can you go to heaven like that? Can you go to heaven basically telling the rest of y'all that you're children of the devil? Well, I'm going to heaven, and I'm saying y'all are children of the devil, so, but the thing is, I can prove it. These guys are scared to death, their pastors are scared to death, and they use Lane Perry as their arm, and I'm not saying anything bad about that. He is the person who's supposed to keep order. But the question is, what is order? And the question is also, what is mocking? Are we mocking him? No. It is terrible that we don't have any conversation between ourselves and them and let you get to hear that there could be dissenting voices up in there. There could be women that are abused and are not happy with that situation. I mean, are you happy with those people that are over there saying their husbands are the boss and we got to do what they say? Saying this is some bondage, serious bondage, and the girls that are being brought up in that, they're going to stay in it most likely. Well, maybe that Elwood Gallimore is dead now. Maybe they won't, because I don't know that there's going to be a personality that can follow him. So here's the thing. Was that a good thing? I'm saying what we were seeing, was that a good thing? that we don't have any information. Now, do you remember what Sabrina said? Sabrina said they learned it. I'm going to ask the producer if I could get my power supply. My computer is, it's got 19%. I'm fine. We have 7 minutes. Listen to what Sabrina said, and we'll come back to a thought. Now, we got the lawyer. Get Sabrina.
We can sing. Of course, we can sing. We have a lot of female singers, and is the boss.
He's just the boss.
They believe this rule especially applies in the house of God.
Your women keep silent in the churches.
Of course,
says the Old Testament is clear about the relationship between the sexes.
The man is the head of the woman.
When you're raised the way that we are, it's just, it becomes a second nature.
Lawyers, raised the way you are, and it becomes second nature. Well, let me ask you, why would Lane Perry be acting the way he's acting right now? Because you do have to give an account. Everybody in the community is wanting to know, watching, and wondering, why do we not have any conversation between the outlets that will give us truth, give us an opportunity to see what's going on? Maybe you were actually hearing for the first time all the stuff BTW is doing. And maybe you're glad. I'll say that Rodney's glad to be away from them. Lost his wife in the ordeal, dancing and carrying on. And so what's next? How is the behavior of the sheriff's department, how does it come in play? Is there any of us that really is above our second nature that we got as a result of the people that we mingle with and the people who are in front of us? Take a listen.
Turn to the sheriff and the preacher for help. Not everyone's a saint in the Bible Belt. Naughty boys down in the Bible Belt.
So, folks, Lane Perry was a deputy under Sheriff Castle, and Sheriff Castle went to jail. Not everybody's being good that's on the sheriff department in the Bible Belt. That's Cindy Price. I don't care for Cindy Price. She has a soul, and I love her, but she is a naughty girl herself. I don't know if she's still being as naughty as she was. Look at this congressman.
Hi, Congressman. How are you? Do you fully support the Obama agenda?
Who are you? Who are you?
Whoa, who are you?
Who are you?
Oh, whoa.
Who are you?
Let me tell you something, dude. My name is Etheridge, and I am a congressman. In case you don't know it, I can assault you on the streets of Washington, D.C., and there ain't nothing you can do about it. Can I tell you something? The people in authority are not actually God. You do not have to give in to the authorities just because it's the way things are set up. And somebody told you, Romans 13:1. Listen, cognitive dissonance. Am I getting to your head? We're basically not going to take this lying down. What does that mean? It means we're going to get footage. The funeral is over. Why were we so adamant about the funeral? Because Solomon said, y'all do Simon says, and that's how y'all act, but Solomon said, Ecclesiastes 7, I always say 12, so I'll check myself. Ecclesiastes, the house of mourning. This is how you do it. If you're watching me and you're wanting to use our Bible program, this is what you do. You just basically say, mourning. And I could have been more specific, but I just went ahead and let it put in the word for the whole Bible. And I know it's in Ecclesiastes 7, and it's 2. It is better to go to the house of mourning. Why? Than to the house of feasting, for that is the end of all men. And what will happen? The living will lay it to his heart. That's when you connect. This may be one of the only times that you connect. Wow, 2 minutes out. Y'all, that's what we're going to continue to do. We want to get information from them now so that you can connect the dots and see what's happening to the polygamists and the people who think that the man is the boss. Do you not feel sorry for them? Yes, I do. And folk at the Church of Christ in Martinsville and in Danville, we all care about you and worried about you. What can you do about it? Well, one thing you can do about it is you can show a friend YouTube. Simply tell them, okay, this dude, he just went out of his way to make sure that we got this information, and he's probably going to get in trouble. Johnny Robertson, Caleb Robertson. I'll have my email up, joeblue81@gmail.com. The reason I say Joe Blue is because I love the man Joe Blue. He was a very mighty evangelist in the area where he lived, and we're out of time. My phone number is 276-806-2150. Watch our broadcast tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern. Reidsville folks, nice show coming down the pipe. Another bit of Elwood Gallimore with Caleb Robertson. Thanks for being with us. Always ask for it. God bless you. Good afternoon.